our big green light.
It's too outlandish.
I like the comparison with Hillary in the debate because I agree there's a great comparison between the two, but Hillary had to... There were people that judged her were the population that can be distracted. And Bob
the media. I wonder what they might have been distracted about. Maybe something about her was just different.
I don't know what it was.
She fucking walked around with no underwear on and fucking showing that vagina off because she couldn't stop talking about how she was a fucking lady.
Nonstop. Oh, remember how she always say, "Damn it, it's my turn." I just earned. I hated how she... But justice is blind, right? Bob Mueller represents justice. Justice is not going to look at the shiny objects, right? And so he doesn't. Trump can't convince a TV audience to give him better ratings than Bob Mueller. That's not what matters here. What matters is what does justice say. And this is going back to our last topic. Why do you undermine justice? It's because justice isn't going to respond to Trumpism. Justice isn't going to respond to nonsense. There are laws and rules and decades and centuries of precedent.
Well, you're the one who mentioned Gorsuch. Right? I mean, it's nice to... the ideal is that justice is blind. That is the ideal. Yeah. But in reality, there are a lot of incarcerated black men, black women, the people of color who would say otherwise. I think that we are dealing in an America with very imperfect systems.
Well, I do think Jeff is right that when it comes to Robert Mueller, himself representing, the scales of justice, he's not going to be,
absolutely.
The system obviously is broken, and
But even look at
the guy in Merrick Garland's seat, that was obviously fucked up and all of that stuff. So there's,
right. But I just don't want to glibly.
No, of course, absolutely not.
No disrespect. Listen, I'm a former lawyer.
Me too.
Really?
Yeah, of
High
course.
five.
Okay, all right, guys. I'm not a former lawyer, so
you don't even get what we're talking about.
I'm not joining in on your high five. Anyways,
rest of the luck with her. That was all I remember.
Yes,
no, but
the justice system is not this perfect thing that's going to come with a blazing sword and smash down all injustice.
I mean,
however,
but
compared to the
it's pretty
electorate,
good when it's functioning as it is now, and I have more faith in Robert Mueller at this point.
Agree. And let's actually move on to the other big news that happened, which is that, and maybe even bigger news, George Papadopoulos, the 30-year-old who Trump met at a flea market and then made him a foreign policy advisor on his campaign, pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI.
And has been cooperating with them since July.
Which is my favorite part of this. He's been cooperating with them since July. The indictment's already a few weeks old, right? But people in the Mueller office are told to, shut the fuck up. You sit in your cubicle, silently indict people, and nobody leaks it and nobody talks about it. And then it comes out in this controlled way, and it's great. I mean, it's talk about the difference between the Mueller organization and the Trump White House in terms of the flow of information and the leaks and all of that stuff. I mean, it's kind of remarkable.
And just remembering that justice, it takes time. I mean, we're in an instant titillation age, right?
Yeah.
But I love the Papadopoulos story because my first book was about cheating, right? It was called Get Rich Cheating. It was a satire, but I actually researched a lot of cheating, and basically Trump did with Papadopoulos, which he does all the time, is he took advantage of people that were desperate, people that themselves were willing to cheat. There's some story that Papadopoulos lied about his credentials in order to get involved with the Trump organization. He took advantage of people in order to further his own cheating, but ultimately it's like taking the bottom row of a Jenga, right? It's going to cave down on you. And I love that someone who was essentially aspiring to be Trump, to use shortcuts to advance himself, will be one of the first, I'm mixing my games, dominoes to fall. Right?
I mean, Papadopoulos is actually in a position to emerge as a kind of a hero in this situation. Low-level guy, nabbed by the feds, caught being an idiot, lying to the FBI.
Well, and can you, just for the listeners, what did he lie about?
He lied about his interactions with Russian agent, the professor. I mean, come on, you just can't make this stuff up. And
with a candlestick.
And basically, the assumption is he pled guilty, and the assumption is presumably that he'll be getting a deal for leniency.
Yeah, because he hasn't been sentenced yet. So, it's ongoing, right? His probably working with them.
And so the whole point of this is like, who is this guy? He's described as the Trump by people in the Trump administration or surrogates as the coffee boy, right? Trying to minimize him and his connection. Well, he had enough of a connection to be mentioned by Trump as a terrific guy, energy expert, whatever it was,
guy.
to be in lots of stock photos flashed around the news now as sitting around, tables and business suits with important looking people, and to have been having these meetings and then bringing these opportunities, quote unquote opportunities, to the campaign. And so I think it's important to note that the reason we are even hearing about Papadopoulos is, number one, because Mueller's gotten a guilty plea. Like, this investigation has already turned something up. Nice. And most importantly is, if Papadopoulos is going to be now working with Mueller's investigation, that is because he has been deemed to be useful. He's been deemed to be credible and helpful. And the whole point of it, the whole point of getting someone to flip is to get someone else further up the chain. Yeah. And so what we can get from all of this is that Papadopoulos is that guy. And so this sends a really strong signal, both the Manafort indictments, Manafort and Gates indictments, and the Papadopoulos guilty plea. What it says to everybody else in the Trump environment who might be involved is like, we have the goods, we're going for it, we're coming from you. Make your decisions wisely, folks. It's jail or honesty. Wouldn't you prefer to be honest?
Yeah, and also, because the picture that's starting to emerge isn't like an unclear one, because we already have Donnie Jones saying that he accepted that meeting because there was dirt on Clinton that was being offered by the Russians or whatever, and then it turned out the meeting was a nothing burger, supposedly about right. And so that's already been publicly admitted, right? And now we have this other we have this Papadopoulos thing going on. So now the picture that's emerging is clear in terms of they're wanting to work with the Russians to get dirt on Clinton, right? The desire is, I think, pretty clear from all of the. And
I think it's important to note that for criminal charges, and particularly conspiracy, state of mind matters, right? They have to be able to demonstrate that there was an active goal, active desire to engage with Russians to get dirt on Clinton. It can't be an accident, oh, gee whiz, I didn't know any of this was happening.
Hey, Russia, if you have her emails,
right, exactly,
release them, something like that.
Oh, shit, we just got lawyered, Rachel. That was really excellent.
Speaking of
state
Russia,
of mind.
For a second, I thought you meant that we just got lawyered, I said something.
You did say something. You were
sorry, the alleged collusion.
My other area, besides cheating, my other area of suddenly relevant, but at the time useless stuff was I was Russian studies in college.
Shut your face.
And is there protection, seriously, for Papadopoulos right now and Manafort?
Right.
Because there's a lot of dead people in Putin's wake. Although, there's also the theory going around that Putin wanted to be caught, because look at the chaos. I mean, he wanted people to know they interfered, because now other countries will fear that he can do that to them.
Yeah.
And also, I can't
Russia's greatness.
I can't wait until we hear the argument from Sarah Huckabee Sanders, that Papadopoulos is a Muslim name. I mean, and that's why he's doing this. Eventually, they're going to find out he one time wore a blue tie, so he's a Democratic operative. It's just a matter of time.
Well, so before we move on to topic number 3, I wanted to share some words from one of our lovely listeners. Title of this post is, "Hi, I'm gay," and they wrote, "Never loved listening to straight people talk about politics more than this podcast. I'd give Negin 11 stars if I could." I blush at this review from Trav S. Life from Apple Podcasts. You guys leave your own, and maybe I'll read it on the show. It gives me such great joy that people listen to the show and that it matters to them. So now, let us move on to topic number 3. The dossier. The dossier is back in the news, and it's not because anyone found the P-tape, though America will pee with excitement once they do find the P-tape. But it's because news broke that the Clinton campaign funded part of the dossier. And just as I'm saying that, it sort of feels anticlimactic. So, the question is, what is the big deal with that piece of news?
The only big deal with that piece of news is that it's given something for the right to jump onto and further muddy the waters. But it's a ridiculous thing to somehow extrapolate from that the Clinton campaign colluded with the Russians, as Trump has done. I mean, really, the most basic evidence is that she lost the election. That's it. Like, what were they going to do? Get this dossier and then be like, oh my God, this is amazing and explosive. Let's sit on it.
Right. And also, like, it was the DNC's emails that got leaked. It was the Podesta emails that got leaked. I mean, obviously, like, if she was colluding with the Russians, she wouldn't be also the victim, you know? It clearly doesn't make any sense. This dossier was put together by Fusion GPS. They hired a guy named Christopher Steele, you know, to go do spy work or whatever. And the dossier...
Well, he's a former spy, and now it was intelligence gathering and...
Right. And the way they've described it is like high-level gossip, right? Like, and it's the kind of thing where you wouldn't actually publish it without further verifying that all of the gossip is super real, right? So it wasn't really meant for that. It's meant for, like, this is the chatter going on in Russia, and then, of course, the dossier leaked and whatever, here we are. And the initial thing was funded by people who were anti-Trump during the primaries.
Right, it seems like probably Rubio at this point. Things are pointing to that because there was the news, the Weekly World News or whatever, one of the news organizations was a friend of Rubio. But anyway, regardless, it was an effort to find out what's wrong with Trump, which is what people have been doing forever.
It's called opposition research, and it totally does not at all seem odd to me. I mean, like, I don't understand. I don't even understand who cares. The fact that it was done should not be remotely weird to anyone, should it? The fact that there was opposition research done on Trump that involved a spy going to Russia and finding out some shit?
I mean, that's some serious oppo, right?
It is, but like this, I mean, it was a presidential campaign. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think
other serious oppo.
I don't think the oppo is the issue, that the fact that there was oppo on presidential candidates. I think the fact that there was something to look for in Russia. Yeah. Again, like that there was that there was reasonable grounds to allocate these resources and to task this high-level operative to go looking into potential contacts between and connections between Trump and the Kremlin. Again, like, I think we always have to return to the fact that is what is extraordinary, is that Trump himself necessitated any of this.
Yeah.
Well, it's like you said about muddying the waters. It's like it's not just losing sight of the forest for the trees. It's being like, oh, this report proving my tax evasion. Look at the color binder on it. It's terrible. I can't look at it. It's making it so we don't look at the terrible underlying facts. And I find a great irony that there is an argument that the funding made the research biased on some level. Like, suddenly who pays for stuff matters to people. It doesn't matter, like, whether it's a Koch brothers buying, like Governor Walker. Right? It doesn't matter if, like, Murdoch is paying for Fox News. But suddenly...
Or a giant right-wing organization, I can't remember what it's called, like a judicial organization that spent $10 million on anti-Merrick Garland ads and an equivalent sum on pro-Gorsuch ads.
Society, basically.
I can't remember. It's like the Judicial Network or something. The Conservative Judicial
like
Network.
The Happy Babies.
Right. I mean, there's all the dark money. I mean, come on. There are credibility issues all over the place in terms of who funds what. But what's notable about this research for this dossier is that it seems to be very bipartisan.
Right, exactly. and it's facts, not conclusion. As you said, this wasn't published. This wasn't like someone put out a thesis and here's my supporting facts. It was just, let's just gather the information. Right. Which is, a scientific approach.
And then, again, the idea was, before the indictment, people got pissed when they found out that Clinton had funded part of the opposition research. People were like, well, this is what Mueller is using to conduct his, which is muddying the water. And before the indictment, people on the Hill were saying, well, we should fire Mueller because he's using this dossier and it was funded by Clinton. But it doesn't make any sense because obviously, again, this was high-level gossip. If you want to treat it as something real, you have to verify it. And so maybe part of Mueller's job is to take points of this dossier and see if they're actually true. But he's not going to just take it as well, this dossier says this, so I'm going to. I mean, that's not how it works.
Right, there's no evidence.
So there's just and there's no evidence that he is. It's the whole claim is ridiculous.
It's not a 0 or 100. It's not like no evidence or all the evidence. All of every claim that is levied is evaluated based on all the available evidence, and then sort of and evaluated for credibility and how credible it is.
We got lawyered.
I mean, this is just based on...
You're like the most useful two guests to have on the show this week. Holy shit.
I haven't practiced in years, but I really like law school. But with respect to the dossier, it hasn't been debunked. And just because many of the claims, like the compromat, can't be conclusively proven, doesn't mean that the intelligence community does not have a scale upon which to evaluate how credible the information is. Part of the reason